The hum of the old ceiling fan did little to chase away the heat inside Ruby's diner. It was past midnight, the kind of quiet hour when the jukebox had stopped crooning and only the hiss of the coffee machine kept time. The few customers left were either long-haul truckers nursing black coffee or locals too restless to go home. But that night, something in the air felt off, tense, waiting. At the far end of the counter, a young waitress named Tiana Brooks wiped down a stack of plates, her trembling hands betraying her effort to stay calm. She was 26, small-framed with kind brown eyes that usually carried warmth, but now they were shadowed by fear. Her uniform was faded from too many washes, her sneakers taped where the soles had split, and a loose strand of hair clung to her damp forehead. For the last half hour, she'd been pretending not to notice the man sitting in the corner booth, Dean Walker. His greasy hair, unshaven jaw, and the way he stared at her made her stomach twist. He'd been coming in every night for weeks, always sitting in the same spot, ordering nothing but black coffee and watching her. At first, she thought it was harmless. Then came the notes on napkins. The comments whispered too close. The night she found him leaning against her car outside the diner, smiling. Now, he was back again, that same smirk on his lips, and Tiana's breath hitched every time his eyes followed her. She couldn't tell if it was the fear or the exhaustion making her dizzy. Her manager had gone home early. The cook was in the back cleaning the grill. She felt trapped. That's when the door creaked open, and a man stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, his leather jacket glinting under the dull fluorescent light. His beard was thick, his hands rough, and his arms bore the unmistakable patch of the Hells Angels. The diner fell silent for a beat as heads turned toward him. The man nodded to no one, walked straight to the counter, and sat down. Tiana froze for a second, her rag slipping from her hand. She had heard of men like him, dangerous, wild, living by no one's rules but their own. The kind of man you avoided eye contact with. But something about him didn't match the stories. His expression was calm, almost thoughtful, like someone who had seen too much to be easily surprised. "What can I get you, sir?" she asked, her voice barely steady. He looked up at her, his blue eyes kind but piercing. "Just coffee, sweetheart. Black." She nodded and turned to pour, her hands shaking slightly. She felt Dean's stare burning into her back again. She swallowed hard. Her heart pounded louder with each step she took back to the counter. When she placed the coffee in front of the biker, her fingers brushed the cup, spilling a few drops onto the counter. "Sorry," she whispered. He gave a half-smile. "Looks like you've had a long night." She wanted to nod, to play it off, but when she glanced toward the corner booth, Dean was still there, smirking, tilting his head as if mocking her fear. She couldn't take it anymore. Her lips trembled as she leaned slightly closer to the biker and whispered, so softly that even she could barely hear it. "He won't stop following me." The biker's hand paused halfway to his cup. Slowly, he turned his gaze toward the corner booth, his jaw tightening when he saw Dean staring right back, smiling that sick little smile. The room seemed to shrink. "Who?" he asked, his voice low, calm, the kind of calm that carried weight. Tiana's throat tightened. "That man, the one in the corner. He's been following me for weeks. I don't know what to do." For a moment, the biker said nothing. He just watched her, his eyes flicking between fear and fury. Then he nodded once. "What's your name?" "Tiana." "Well, Tiana," he said, his voice rough but steady, "why don't you take a step back and let me finish this coffee?" She didn't know what he meant, but the way he said it made her chest ache with a strange mix of relief and worry. Dean must have sensed something shifting, because he stood up suddenly, tossing a few crumpled bills on the table. "Hey, sweetheart," he said loud enough for the diner to hear. "Ain't polite to whisper in front of a customer. You know me better than that." Tiana froze where she stood. The biker, his name tag red read on his leather vest, pushed his coffee aside and turned slowly in his seat. You got a problem with how she talks? He asked. Dean snorted. What's it to you, man? You her daddy or something? The diner went completely still. The cook peeked out from the kitchen, sensing trouble. A trucker near the door stopped mid-sip of his coffee. Reed stood up. He wasn't towering, but there was something about his stance, that stillness, that made Dean falter. He took one step closer, his boots heavy against the linoleum. She said you've been following her. That true? Dean's smirk returned, though his voice lost a bit of its swagger. Man, she's just playing the victim. She likes the attention. We had a thing once, right, babe? Tiana shook her head violently. That's a lie. Reed's jaw flexed. Get out. Dean blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. You're done here. You so much as breathe in her direction again, I'll make sure you regret it. Dean's smirk faltered. He looked around, realizing every pair of eyes in the diner was on him. He tried to puff his chest. You think I'm scared of some biker? Reed's lips curved into something that wasn't a smile. No. But you should be scared of what kind of man I am when someone hurts a woman just trying to make a living. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Dean cursed under his breath, grabbed his jacket, and stormed out. The bell above the door jingled behind him, leaving silence in his wake. Tiana let out a shaky breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She backed against the counter, her knees weak. Thank you, she whispered. Reed sat back down, taking a slow sip of his coffee as if nothing had happened. You don't gotta thank me. Just stay safe, all right? Her eyes welled up. He's not going to stop, you know. He waits near my place sometimes. I called the cops once. They said unless he touches me, there's nothing they can do. Reed sighed, setting the cup down. Where do you live? Off Maple Street, near the old gas station. He nodded, thinking. You got a ride home? She shook her head. My car's broken. I walk. He stood again, pulling a few bills from his wallet and placing them on the counter. Not tonight, you don't. I'll walk you. Tiana hesitated, looking at the patch on his jacket again, the skull and wings, the symbol people whispered about. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Reed met her eyes. Because once upon a time, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it. Maybe this is me returning the favor. Something in his tone, quiet, raw, made her trust him. Against all logic, she nodded. The two of them stepped out into the cool night air, the neon sign buzzing above them. The parking lot was empty except for Dean's pickup truck, still parked by the curb, the engine idling faintly. Tiana's stomach dropped. He's still here. Reed's expression hardened. His hand clenched into a fist, the sound of knuckles cracking in the dark. Stay behind me, he said quietly. And as the headlights flicked on, blinding them both, Tiana realized the night was far from over. The headlights from Dean's truck cut through the night like twin blades. The rumble of his engine grew louder, echoing off the empty diner lot. Tiana clutched her apron, her heart pounding in her throat. She could see his silhouette behind the wheel, one arm draped lazily over the window, that same twisted grin stretched across his face. Reed didn't flinch. He stood tall in front of her, his leather jacket catching the pale glow of the lights. The air around him felt heavy, dangerous in a quiet kind of way. Stay right here, he told her again, his voice low but firm. Then he took a slow step toward the truck. Dean revved the engine, the sound sharp and taunting. You think you can scare me, old man, he shouted out the window. You don't know who you're messing with. Reed didn't answer. He just kept walking, steady and sure. Each step seemed to suck the air out of the night. Dean's grin faltered as Reed came closer. Get out of the truck, Reed said evenly. Dean laughed, trying to sound bold. You crazy. I'll run you right over. Reed's blue eyes locked on him. Then do it. For a tense moment, Dean actually looked like he might. The engine roared, his tires spun slightly on the gravel, but when Reed didn't move, didn't even blink, Dean's courage cracked. The truck's headlights cut out suddenly, leaving darkness. The door creaked open. Dean stepped out, trying to hold on to his pride. You don't scare me, he spat. You're just some biker trash. Reed's jaw tightened, but he didn't rise to the bait. You follow her again, you'll wish you never said that. Dean took another step forward, too close now. What are you gonna do, hero? Hit me? That'll land you in jail. You think she's worth it? Reed's hand twitched, but he didn't hit him. Instead, he leaned in close and said something that made Dean's face pale. You ever touch her, and I'll make sure you disappear. I don't call cops. I bury problems. The words landed heavy. Dean blinked, realizing this wasn't a man bluffing. He spat on the ground, muttered something under his breath, then climbed back into his truck. As his headlights vanished down the road, Tiana sagged against the wall, trembling. She hadn't even realized she was crying until Reed turned and saw her tears glinting in the dim light. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded, though her voice cracked when she said, I think so. He looked around the lot, making sure Dean was gone, then exhaled slowly. Come on. Let's get you home. They walked along the quiet road, the night air cool and sharp. Streetlights flickered over cracked pavement, and every sound, a barking dog, the hum of distant traffic, made Tiana flinch. Reed kept close beside her, his long strides slowing to match hers. You ever think about leaving this place? He asked after a while. She looked up at him, surprised. All the time. But I can't. My mom's sick. I take care of her, and the diner's the only job I can get right now. Reed nodded, his eyes thoughtful. You're stronger than you think. She gave a weak laugh. Strong doesn't pay the bills. He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But it keeps you alive. When they reached her apartment building, a rundown two-story place with peeling paint, Reed scanned the shadows around the lot before letting her go up. You got a lock on that door? Yes. But it sticks sometimes. He frowned. I'll fix it. She tried to protest, but he was already walking toward the door, testing the handle. The frame was loose, the latch barely catching. He disappeared for a moment, came back with a small wrench from his bike, and tightened the bolts. It was simple, but the gesture made her throat tighten again. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. He looked at her for a long moment before saying, because I've seen what happens when no one steps up. My sister, she went through something like this once. No one helped her until it was too late. Tiana's eyes softened. I'm sorry. He shook his head. Just don't say sorry for needing help. You didn't do anything wrong. There was silence for a while. Then she whispered, I don't think I've ever met someone like you. Reed chuckled quietly. Trust me, you're better off not knowing too many like me. But in that moment, she didn't believe it. There was a kindness in him that didn't fit the reputation stitched on his jacket. Before he left, Reed gave her a folded piece of paper. That's my number. You see that guy again, you call me. Day or night. She hesitated, then took it, clutching it like a lifeline. Thank you, Reed. He nodded once, then walked back toward his bike. The roar of the engine broke the night, and just before he turned the corner, he looked back and raised a hand, a silent promise that she wasn't alone. For the first time in months, Tiana slept through the night. But peace didn't last long. 2 nights later, as she finished her shift, she noticed a broken taillight on her car that hadn't been there before. A small note was tucked under the wiper. Her hands shook as she opened it. Thought you could hide behind him? See you soon. Her breath caught. Panic surged through her chest. She looked around, but the parking lot was empty. Her phone trembled in her hand as she dialed the number Reed had given her. He answered on the second ring. "Tiana?" Her voice broke. "He's back." There was a pause, then his tone changed, calm, firm, dangerous. "Stay inside the diner. Don't move. I'm on my way." She turned, locking the door behind her as the neon light flickered above the window. Outside, a shadow moved across the lot. And when the sound of a motorcycle thundered through the night, she realized she might not have to be afraid anymore, not as long as Reed was still breathing. Within minutes, the distant growl of Reed's motorcycle broke the quiet. Its headlights carved through the darkness as he pulled into the diner lot. Tiana stood inside by the counter, clutching her phone, eyes wide with fear. The figure in the shadows darted behind her car, but Reed had already seen him. The bike engine cut, leaving only the sound of boots on pavement. "Dean!" Reed's voice thundered across the lot. "You didn't listen." Dean froze, half-crouched near the car. "This is between me and her," he shouted back. "No," Reed said, stepping closer, his jacket gleaming under the light. "It's over." Dean lunged toward the door, but Reed moved faster. He caught him by the collar, slammed him against the hood with enough force to rattle the car. Dean tried to swing, but Reed pinned him effortlessly. "You ever come near her again," Reed growled, his voice cold and deliberate, "and I swear you won't walk away next time. You understand?" Dean nodded weakly, his face pale. Reed let him go, and Dean stumbled to his truck, speeding off into the night, for good this time. When Reed turned, Tiana was standing at the door, tears streaking her cheeks. She ran out, her voice shaking. "You didn't have to do that for me." He gave a tired smile. "Yeah, I did. Because someone's gotta remind guys like that what respect means." For a long moment, she said nothing, then whispered, "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't," he said softly. "Just promise me you'll keep fighting. You got people worth living for, your mom, your future. Don't let fear take that away." The dawn light began to spill across the sky, touching the world in shades of gold. Reed walked to his bike, the rumble low and steady as he put on his helmet. Before he rode off, he looked at her one last time. "You'll be all right now." And somehow, she knew he was right. Weeks later, Tiana stood behind the diner counter again, her uniform crisp, her smile genuine. The fear was gone from her eyes. Outside, the world went on, cars passing, people laughing, sunlight streaming in through the window. She often thought about that night, about the man who'd shown her that strength doesn't always roar, sometimes, it just stands quietly between danger and someone who's scared. And every time she saw a motorcycle pass by, she whispered a silent thank you, not for saving her life, but for reminding her what courage looked like.